All right, we're holding on Dab Yud Amud Bet 10B1 in the English. We are going back to the topic that the Mishnah talked about, is that when they Ibur HaChodesh B'Shloisha, the addition to a month is done with 3. Okay, we got to give a little bit of a background. I know many of you already know this background, but important to make the setup, the Gemara correctly. Everybody understands what we're talking about. We're going to give this background. The background is that unlike the Georgian calendar, which is the English calendar, which we use in day-to-day usage, the Jewish calendar is based on renewal. It says, it should be a new month for you. So Rosh Chodesh means something has to happen new, and that's a new month. So for us, the moon is renewed, right? That's what they always call out. The Shabbat Mevarchim is going to be Omolad. Omolad is when the renewal of the moon is going to be. That's exactly the precise moment that the moon is going to start to show again. That's the new moon. That's called the Molad. In the English calendar, there is no reason why there's 12 months. Really, the Roman calendar was a 10-month calendar. That's why, if you pay attention, you have October, November, December. October, octagon, is 8 sides. December comes from Deca, which means 10. And yet October is the 10th month, not the 8th month, and December is the 12th month, not the 10th month. So the way the history goes is that Roman calendar was a 10-month calendar, not based on any reason why 1 month would be here and why 1 month would be there. When Julius Caesar became Caesar, he decided he wanted a month after himself. So he added the month of July to his month. Well, the next Caesar, Augustus, decided he also wanted a month. And of course, they took the summer months and made it full months. And they took a summer month, and they have July, and you have August. And so now you have 12 months in the solar calendar, in the Georgian calendar. There's no reason why there's 12 months. There's nothing that changes from the February 29th, from 28th to March 1st. There's no reason. In Judaism, each month is based on the renewal of the moon. Now, the renewal of the moon happens on a cycle. And this is all can be found in notes 2, 3, 4, all these notes together. I'm just going to read it out to you. Also, I'm taking from the Mesivta Gemara as well to explain some stuff that's not brought down here in the art scroll. The Molad. How do you calculate when the month is going to be new? It's every 29 and a half days, 44 minutes, 3 seconds, and a third second. Okay? 29 days, 29 and a half days, so 29 full days, half a day, 12 hours, 44 minutes, 3 seconds, and a third of a second. That is how often the new moon shows up. So from every month, you go on. Now, the problem with this is you cannot make Rosh Chodesh, you cannot make a new month in the middle of a day. You have to have a complete day. So if you think about it, 29 and a half days. So very simple. You make 6 months, 29 days. Rosh Chodesh, and Rosh Chodesh should be the 30th day. So 29 days in a month, 6 months of the year. And the other 6 months of the year make 30 days. And this will make up for the half a day. That is true. If you have 6 months, 29 days, 6 months, 30 days, the half the days equal up. However, you have 44 minutes every month, 44 minutes, 3 seconds, and a third second that are unaccounted for. And as the months will pass by, these 44 minutes will add up. After a year, you're almost at a half a day, right? A little less than a half a day, 44 minutes, 12 months, you're almost at a half a day. So because of that, you're going to find that in a year, you usually would have 6, 7, or maybe even 8 months that are mole, that are full 30 days. You can never have in a Jewish year more than 8 months being mole, being full. And you can never have less than 4 months of being a full month. It's somewhere between 4 and 8, depending on the year, depending on the need. In the times of the temple, times of Beit HaMikdash, we would rely on witnesses who came and said we saw the new moon. And even then, the judges who were listening to them could have asked them questions, could have postponed their testimony in order to make Rosh Chodesh the next day. But the reason why it can't be less than 4 full days or more than 8 full months is because if you did that, then the molad, then the day that the moon actually becomes new, would be off from Rosh Chodesh by 3 days. And Chazal said you can never have it, the new moon, the actual new moon, and Rosh Chodesh being off by more than 3 days, because people are going to say, if it's off by 3 days, people are going to say the Beit didn't make a mistake. And therefore, you cannot have that. So you can never have less than 4 months being full, meaning 30 days. You can never have more than 8 months being 30 days. So somewhere in the year, we're having between 4 and 8. Now, today, the calendar is not based anymore on the sighting of the moon. There's a calculation, and it takes into account these 29 and a half days, 44 minutes, 3 seconds, and a third second that the month, the moon renews itself. So with this hakdama, with this introduction, we're going to start now the Gemara on Daf Yud Amud Bet. So Ibur, the word Ibur means to add another day, to add something more. Ibur hachodesh lishlosha. To add a month, to add a day to the month, you need 3 judges. That's what the Mishnah said. So now the Gemara is analyzing this Mishnah. Gemara says, Hishuv lo katani. To calculate the new moon, it doesn't say you need 3. Kiddush lo katani. It doesn't say to be mikadesh, to sanctify the new moon, that you need 3. It doesn't say that either. Ela ibur. Rather to say that today is the 30th day and not the first day of the next month. That's when you need 3 people. So didn't say for the calculation, didn't say to make it Rosh Chodesh you need 3. It said in order to say today is the 30th day, that I need 3 people. The Gemara says, if they didn't make the 30th day Rosh Chodesh, they didn't make 30th day the first day of the next month, so then it'll definitely become an extra day in the month. Here, you have 30 days. You're not telling me the 30th day is belonging to the next month. So I know the next day is going to be the first of the month, and today is still going to be part of this month. You don't need to say today is the extra day of the month. Don't make today the first day of the month. And I know today is the extra day of the month. Now we, by the way, when we have a month that is mole, that is 30 days, that's the time when you have 2 days Rosh Chodesh. The 30th day, which is still part of the old month, and the first day, which is part of the next month, those 2 days are Rosh Chodesh. That's how you have a 2-day Rosh Chodesh. A 2-day Rosh Chodesh is when you have a full month. So the 30th day, which, for example, we had just now, Adar Bet was a 2-day Rosh Chodesh, right? So the first day of Rosh Chodesh was actually still part of Adar Aleph, was the 30th day of Adar Aleph. And the second day Rosh Chodesh was the first day of Adar Bet. So the Gemara is saying, if you're not telling, you don't have to tell me that the 30th day of Adar Aleph is Adar Aleph, the 30th day. The fact that I know tomorrow is the first day of Adar Bet tells me that this month, Adar Aleph, was a full month. So why do you have to tell me I need 3 judges to tell me that today is the 30th day and it's an extra day to the month? So Amar Abaya says, you're right. There's really no reason for any judges to tell me that today is a full day. So today, rather, you got to change the Mishnah. When the Mishnah said you need 3 people, it means Kiddush HaChodesh. In order for the judges to say today is Rosh Chodesh, in order for them to be Mekadesh HaChodesh, to sanctify the new moon and say today is Rosh Chodesh, that you need 3 people. We also learned this way. Kiddush HaChodesh, in order to sanctify the new moon, the Ibur HaShana, and to add a month to the year, like we have this year, Adar Bet, Bishlosha, you need 3 judges. Divrei Rabbi Meir, these are the words of Rabbi Meir. So Abaya said that there was a mistake in the Mishnah, and the Mishnah should have said to sanctify the new moon, not to add a 30th day, that you needed 3 judges. But Amar Rava says, Laha ibur kitane. But what are you talking about? It should say sanctify the new moon. The Mishnah clearly says to add on a day that you need 3, right? And if you look at Rashi, Rashi says the hak ibur kitane derech tana to'eb girsa lechasar teva ayidei shikha. when the Mishnah makes a mistake, the Mishnah makes a mistake by missing a word or something like that. But what did he say? You won't find in the Mishnah a mistake where he put the wrong word instead of another word. So that's what Rava is saying. Rava is saying, why are you telling me, Abaya, that the Mishnah made a mistake? Instead of Ibur HaChodesh, it should have said Kiddush HaChodesh. Instead of adding a day to the month, it should have said to sanctify the month. No, the Mishnah wouldn't make such a mistake. El Amar Rava. So Rava says, what do we do with this Mishnah? How do you understand it? It's missing words. It does say Ibur HaChodesh, but you have to add 2 words before the word Ibur of adding on. Kiddush biyom Ibur bishlosha. If you're making Rosh Chodesh on the 30th day, on the day that could have been the extra day, if you're making Rosh Chodesh on the 30th day, then you need 3 judges to say it is Rosh Chodesh. Achar Ibur leka Kiddush. And if it's the next day, if it's the 31st day, which is the first of the next month, which is now you're saying that's Rosh Chodesh, then you don't need 3 judges to say that that day is Rosh Chodesh. That day automatically becomes Rosh Chodesh. Umani, and whose opinion is this? Rabbi Elazar, Rab Sodeki. It's Rabbi Elazar, the son of Rab Sodek. The Tanya, he said, Rabbi Elazar Rab Sodek Omer, Imlo nir'eh bezmano. If you didn't see Rosh Chodesh on the 30th day at the right time, on the 30th day should have been the new month. If you didn't see it on the 30th day, ein mekadshin oto. You do not be mekadesh it. You do not say today is Rosh Chodesh. Shikvar kitchuhu bashamayim. Because Shemayim in heaven, they already made it Rosh Chodesh for the next day. So according to Rava, the Mishnah means you only be mekadesh it on the day of Ibur, on the day that could have been the 30th day. Then you're mekadesh it. If it's already no one came, no witnesses came, and you weren't able to mekadesh it on the 30th day, so then it automatically becomes, without being mekadesh and without sanctify it, it already becomes Rosh Chodesh on the next day. Now, Rashi says over here, that they already sanctified it in heaven. Rashi says, Betin Shelmala me'etmol, that yesterday, so on the 30th day, talking about the 31st day, right? So the 31st day, the first day of the new month, you don't have to sanctify it because yesterday it already was sanctified by Shemayim. They already made it Rosh Chodesh in Shemayim. Now, if you look at the top Tosafot on Yud Amud Bet, Shekvar Kachuhu Bashemayim, and Yesh Mefarshim, the Beit in Shemala. Some explain that the heavenly court upstairs in Shemayim, Mikachin Oto Leolam Bishat HaMolad. That really, in Shemayim, they make Rosh Chodesh on the day when the Molid is, when it's the mathematical time of the month becoming new. The Ein Nira, but he says it doesn't make sense. That if you say that in Shemayim they make Rosh Chodesh when it's actually renewed in heaven. Because then even on the 30th day, why are you being Mekadesh? They already were Mekadesh in Shemayim. They already made it Rosh Chodesh when it actually turned Rosh Chodesh mathematically. Elanira Kapirsha Kuntras, rather it makes sense that, like the way Rashi explained it, the Perek Bet the Rosh Hashanah. The Biyom Shloshim Mamatinim Beitin Shel Mala Beitin Shel Mata Shemi Avru Alayom Shloshim Ve'echad She'efshar Shlokach Hayom V'Kad Shenato B'Shamayim Min HaShachar. So Tosafot says, you know what it really is? Really in Shemayim, they're already ready to make Rosh Chodesh when the Molad is, but they wait. They wait for Beitin Shel Mata, they wait for the human Beitin, to see if they're going to be Mekadesh the month on the 30th day. If you didn't Mekadesh on the 30th day, then they're going to go automatically going to make it the next morning, they're going to make it Rosh Chodesh. So they're ready, they're prepared to make it Rosh Chodesh when the actual moon is renewed, but they wait to see if the Beit Din Shel Mata is going to do it. And if our Beit Din doesn't do it, so then they do it in Shemayim on the next morning, on the 31st morning, on the first of the next month. That's the way Tosafot understands it. Rabbeinu Yonah explains it a little different. It's pretty much the same idea, but he explains it on a different angle. And he says what he means as Mekadosh and Shemayim, it means on the 30th day, you have an option to make it Rosh Chodesh or not, based on the witnesses, based on the calculation, whatever it is. Beit Din could say is Rosh Chodesh or not on the 30th day. But on the 31st day, there's no more option. It has to be Rosh Chodesh. So what it means is Mekadosh B'Shemayim, it means it's out of your hands. On the 31st day, Beit Din cannot say, oh, today is not Rosh Chodesh yet. You never have a month that's 34, 31 days. It's either 29 or 30. There's no 31 days in a month. So therefore, on the 31st day, it's already out of the hands of the human court to make it Rosh Chodesh or not. So that's, and by the way, that's the way the Rambam paskins la'alacha, that the Beit Din in the Beit HaMikdash only had the opportunity on the 30th day to be Mekadosh Rosh Chodesh. If they did not Mekadosh Rosh Chodesh on the 30th day, then they did not need to be Mekadosh Rosh Chodesh, as it would happen automatically on the next day. Rav Nachman Omar. Rav Nachman says, I'll explain the Mishnah different. It's missing words. But instead of saying Kiddush B'yom, like a Rava said, he's saying Kiddush Achar Ibor B'Shlosha. If you're making Rosh Chodesh on the 31st day, then you need 3 people. Not like Lahalacha, like we paskin, like the Rambam paskins, and not like Rava. He has a different opinion. He says you only have to be Mekadosh on the day after. B'yom Ibor Lika Kiddush. But if you're making Rosh Chodesh on the 30th day, then you don't be Mekadosh. You don't sanctify the month. Umani, and whose opinion is this? Pelimohi. This is the opinion of Pelimo. The Tanya, Pelimo Omer, Bismano, if you're making Rosh Chodesh on the appropriate day, which is the 30th day, Ein Mikachinoto, then you do not sanctify the new moon. Shaloi Bismano, if you're doing it on the 31st day, Mekadishin Oto, then you have to sanctify it with the 3 judges. And his opinion, the way the Mefarshim explained it is, people expect the 30th day to be Rosh Chodesh, because that's the actual day, 29 and a half days, 12 hours, 44 minutes, right? 29 days, 12 hours, 44 minutes, 3 seconds, and a third of a second. So they expect day 30 to be the new Rosh Chodesh. So therefore, you don't have to be Mekadosh. But on the 31st day, I didn't expect that. I expected the 30th day. And now that you tell me the 31st day is Rosh Chodesh, the first of the month, so then you have to tell me, and you have to be Mekadosh. That's the way Pelemo's logic plays out. Rav Ashi Omar, Rav Ashi says, you know what the Mishnah actually means? The Mishnah means L'olam Hishub Ketani. It really means the calculation of the new month requires 3 people. Umay Ibor. So why is the word use the word Ibor? The extra day, the 30th day, that could be an extra day to the month. It Chishuv de Ibor. It means the calculation for the next day is done with 3 judges. In order to calculate whether we need to make it a full month or a short month, that is done by 3. But I did the Kaveh Lemitne Ibor Shan. Since the Mishnah was about to teach about adding a month to the year, which is called Ibor Shana, adding a month to the year, Tani Nami Ibor Chodesh. So it also uses the same language to say adding a day to the month. Hishuv, now according to Rav Ashi, Hishuv Chodesh En is when you're calculating, you need 3 judges to calculate the day for the month. You need to add a day for the month. Kiddush Chodesh Lo, that when it comes to be Mekadosh, to say it is Rosh Chodesh, you don't need 3 judges. Mani, whose opinion is this? That you never need 3 judges to be Mekadosh Chodesh, to sanctify the new moon? Rabbi Eliezer, this is the opinion of Rabbi Eliezer. The Tanya, but we're taught in the right of Rabbi Eliezer Omer. Ben Bismano, Ben Shelo Bismano. Whether you're making Rosh Chodesh on the 30th day, or whether you're making Rosh Chodesh on the 31st day, and Mekachin Oto. You don't have to be Mekadosh it. You don't need to sanctify it. You don't need the 3 judges to say it's Rosh Chodesh. Why? Because it says, Vikidashtem, it's Shanat Hamishim Shana. It says by Yovel, you have to make the 50th year the Yovel year. You have to sanctify the 50th year. Shanim ata mikadesh. Ata mikadesh chadashim. So you see, it says there, Vikidashtem, it's Shana. It says you mikadesh the year. It doesn't say you're mikadesh the month. So according to the Eliezer, whether the Rosh Chodesh is the 30th day, whether Rosh Chodesh is the 31st day. You never Mikadosh the month. You only Mikadosh the year. So you have the different opinions here. You have an opinion, the first opinion of Abaya, that you always Mikadosh the month, whether the 30th or the 31st. You had Rava's opinion that's really Rabbi Elazar bar Tzadok, that you only make Kaddish it on the 30th day. For the 31st day, it's already by itself going to be Rosh Chodesh. And that's the way we paskin. And then you have Rav Nachman, which is Plemo's opinion, which is you only mass sanctify the 31st day. If Rosh Chodesh is the 30th day, you don't have to be Mekadosh it. Then Rav Ashi's opinion that you never Mekadosh it, not the 30th, not the 31st, because you only Mekadosh years and not months. So far, so good? Okay. Now, we're going to give a little hakdama into the next part of the Gemara. This is called Ibur HaShana, adding a month to the year. Okay. So you have in a year 365 days, a solar year. The Pasuk also tells us you have to make Pesach in the springtime. But our months are based on a lunar year, 29 and a half days, 44 minutes, 3 seconds, and a third of a second. What happens if you take 29 and a half days, 44 minutes, 3 seconds, and a third of a second, and times it by 12 months, you're going to end up be'erech around 354 days. You're off by 11 days. So if I had 3 years pass by, I'm now off by how many days? By 33 days. So that means every 3 years, back me up a whole month. That means Pesach will now happen. Now it's happening in April. Next year it's going to happen. In 3 years, it's going to happen in the middle of March. And 3 years after that, it's going to happen in February. And 3 years after that, it's going to happen in January. Lahavdal elef afei avdalot. If anyone has any Muslim friends or Muslim people, they have such a day called a month called Ramadan by them. And their Ramadan every single year ends up in a different month. And as the years go by, sometimes it'll be in the summer, sometimes it'll be in the winter, because they're only following a lunar year. They're following a lunar cycle. Now, we cannot follow only a lunar cycle because the Torah says you have to make sure Pesach happens in the spring. So in order to do this, about every 3 years, we have what's called Adar Bet, like we learned today. Today we're in Adar Bet, we're in the month of Adar Bet, which is basically another month thrown in, Ibur HaShana, in order to make Pesach fall out in the springtime, where it's supposed to be. Now, today we have a calendar, a cycle, a 19-year cycle, and in this 19-year cycle, we'll have 7 times, I believe 7 times that we'll have a Ibur HaShana. We'll have an extra month. And it's usually every 3 years, but once in the 19-year cycle, it's going to be after 2 years. So it'll be 3, and once it's going to be after 2 years. Why? Because remember, it's 33 days. It's 11 days every year. So after a few years, you're having 3 days, 3 days, 3 days. So you have to make up for all of those extra 3 days. So at one point, you're going to have Adar Aleph, Adar Bet after 2 years. Usually it's after 3 years. Somewhere in the cycle, it's going to be after 2 years. This way, you'll catch up. You won't mess up with the days. Yes, Makil.
If it's going to be 2 years for one, then we need it to be 20-year cycle, no? If it's
a 19-year cycle. The 19-year cycle.
Years. So if you do 3, and then one cycle is 2 years. Suppose it's going to be 20, no?
Right. So if you have 19, right? So 19 years. So 6 times 3 is 18, right?
18,
right.
Yeah.
So somewhere in those 19 years, we're going to have one time it's going to be after 2 years.
After 2 years. 18. Yeah. So it's
going to be 7 times within 19 years, you're going to have Adar Bet. 7 times within 19 years. Okay? This way we add up for the month, and we add up for all those 3 days that we're going to be missing. Okay? Now, just as a side point, in the solar year, the Georgian calendar that we use, the Gaisha calendar, we also have something called a leap year, which is when you have February 29th. The reason for being that is is that the solar year is actually not 365 days. It's 365 days and a quarter day. So every 4 years, you got to make up for that extra quarter, right? Every 4 years, that's when you have a leap year in order to make up for that day, because otherwise the solar year will be off. The fact is, it's not just a quarter day; it's a quarter day and a couple of hours. Therefore, every 100 years or so on the century, there will be another leap year. They'll make another leap year because of that hours that you have to calculate. In fact, that is an historical fact that there was El Fafer of the Lot, there was a pope that realized the solar year was off, and after thousands of years, it was off by 11 days because the solar calendar wasn't adding up anymore, springtime and all that. So he decided to add 11 days, to skip 11 days. You went to sleep, it was October, whatever. The next day you woke up, it was 11 days later, in order to readjust readjust the calendar. That was Pope Gregory. That's why it's the Gregorian calendar. It's based on his name. Not everyone agreed with him, because if you weren't Roman Catholic, like the Orthodox Russian Church in Russia, they said nothing doing. We're not adding 11 days. We're not skipping 11 days. That's why you'll see that their holidays are off by 11 days. They have Xmas, and the Roman Catholic will have it on December 25th, whereas the Russian Orthodox Church has it on January 6th. It's because of this guy who put it in. Now, why you have to know is la halacha, because the Torah, when he brings down when you're supposed to start, with 10 Talmata with bracha, he brings down on the days before this Gregory came around and changed the dates. So therefore, the dates in the Torah is completely off. If you look at we never say 10 Talmata there. That's because we follow the Gregorian calendar. And you have to know this historical fact to make the Torah match up. Anyway, that's a little bit about calendar. So how do you go about and set this up? How do you go about and add on? Now, today I told you the way it works in a 19-year cycle. It wasn't always like that way. In the past, in the times of Beit HaMikdash, yes, they had to make sure Pesach fell in the spring, but that wasn't the only consideration. We're going to learn next week that if the roads were not kept over the winter, the roads got potholes and everything. If the roads were no good, so people could not be ole regel for Pesach, they would push off. They would make another other bet. If the ovens to cook the korban Pesach weren't ready, they would maybe push off Nisan by adding an other bet. There were other circumstances they took into account, not just that Pesach had to fall in the spring. They took into the account of the people's needs to see if they should add Pesach, add another other bet in order to make Pesach later. So in the olden days, before they had the calendar like we had today, in the Beit HaMikdash, they would have to take judges. And the judges would have to debate if they should make this year an extra Adar or not. And that's where our Gemara picks up. Rabbi Shimon ben Gamliel Omer b'shloisha. You need to have 3. Tanya was talking about the Ketzad. How does one make a leap year? How does one add an extra month to the year? So Rabbi Shimon ben Gamliel, b'shlosha matchilim. You start with 3 judges. Hamisha nosin v'notinim. Then you add 2 more judges, and you end up to 5, and you go back and forth, and you deliberate. V'gomrim b'shiv'ah, and you finish it with 7. How did this play out? Ehad omer l'shev. One judge said, "Listen, guys, we need to sit and think if we should make an other bet this year." Ushnayim omrim shelo l'shev. 2 of the judges said, "No, we don't have to sit down and debate anything. There's nothing talking about. We're not doing it." Batel yachid b'mu'oto. So the one judge, he is batel, he's nullified. We don't listen to him. There's no leap year. Shnayim omrim l'shev. 2 of the judges say, "Listen, we got to sit and talk about a leap year." And one judge says, "No, we're not talking about it." So then you add 2 more judges, so you end up 5. And they start talking about it. If 2 say, "Yes, we need it," but 3 of the 5 say, "We don't need a leap year." So then these 2 are nullified, and we're not going to make a leap year. If 3 say you need it, and 2 say you don't need it, you add 2 more. Whether they debate at this point when they're 7, whether they debate it again or not, it's a machloket rishonim. Then she'ena minyan pachot mishivah, because you do not make a new year, a leap year, without 7 judges. So basically, the Gemara said you start with 3, you go by the majority. You have 5, you go by the majority, and then you go 7, and you say that it's a leap year. Now, what happens if they argue, if they agree at 5? Do you need to add 2? If they agree at 3, do you need to add to 7? This is machloket rishonim. Some rishonim say if 3 judges right away from the beginning agreed, then that's it. That's already a leap year. But some say no. You always need to end it off with 7. You always need to have 7 when you're saying that it's a leap year. So halacha, you start with 3, you go to 5, you go to 7, and then with 7 you proclaim that it is a leap year. Okay, so far so good. Any questions on this point? We're up to Yud Amid Bet. Okay. Again, the judges that have to be for making a new year have to have smicha, just like everything else. We're going to see in a minute another qualification. Let me just see over here. I'm just going to read from the halacha. Shnaim omrim tzricha ibur, mishlosha omrim ena tzricha, batlu shnaim b'muatan. 3 argue with the 2, and the 3 say we don't need it, then it's over. Shlosh omrim tzricha, the 2 say it's not. Mosafin shnaim in a mezumanin, you add those who were invited. They argue and they go to 7. Im gamru kulam la'avar, ushlo la'avar, osin kemoshe gamru. Bim nechaku alchim, achar harov ben la'avar ben shlo la'avar. צריך שראש בית דין הגדול, שהוא ראש ישיבה של 71 מכלל הישיבה, אם גמר בשלושה לעבר הרי זו מעוברת, והוא שהיה הנשיא עמהן או שירצה. ובעיבור השנה מתחילים מן הצד. So he says here that they bring down halacha. If by 3 already they said everyone agreed, then that would be enough, as long as you would have the approval of the nasi, who is the head of the Sanhedrin. So you need to have the approval of the Sanhedrin. We're going to see that's a requirement. We're going to see that the judges need to be invited, not just some 3 judges get up and say, let's talk about a leap year. They have to be invited by the Nasi to talk about it. And then the Nasi has to agree to their decision, and then it becomes a leap year. So it starts with 3. If by 3 it's done, they all agree, then that's done. There are Rishonim say you need to get to 7, but the way he brings down the halacha is if 3 they did it, they're done. If you need more, you go to 5. If you're still arguing, you go to 7, and then you go with whatever the majority there holds, as long as you go with the Nasi's approval. Okay, that's the halacha how they do it. Okay.
Wait, as long as 3 people agree, or it just has to end in 7 to finalize the
halacha. He brings down that all you need is the first 3 to agree. The first 3 agree, you don't have to go to 7. That's the way he brings it down. Here,
but the Gemara says otherwise. It has to be 7.
The
right?
Gemara doesn't say that. The Gemara says that if you go to 3, 5, and 7, so then you stop at 7. There are some Rishonim that say it means 7 no matter what. Even if no one was arguing, you always need to end it with 7. But in the Mesivta, he brings here in the back, he brings down, if they agreed with 3, then you stop at 3. You don't even need 7. Okay, now, the Gemara wants to know, Haini Shlosha Hamisha B'Shiv'a Keneged Mi. 3, 5, 7. Where'd you get these numbers from? Why are we choosing 3, 5, and 7 to be the reason, the numbers that we need? So Pligi Ba Rabbi Yitzchak Bar Nachmani B'Chad De'imeh. Rabbi Yitzchak Bar Nachmani were arguing with someone why it's 3, 5, and 7. Umanu, and who was this person he was arguing with? Rabbi Shimon ben Pazi. Or Shimon ben Pazi. Ba'amrulei. Some have a different version. Rabbi Shimon ben Pazi B'Chad De'imeh. Rabbi Shimon ben Pazi was someone else. Umanu, who was this other person? Rabbi Yitzchak Bar Nachmani. Who was Yitzchak Bar Nachmani. So Chadamer, one said as follows. You know why 3, 5, and 7? Keneged Birkat Kohanim. It's corresponding to Birkat Kohanim. See, Birkat Kohanim, the first pasuk, Yivrecha Hashem Yishmerecha, 3. The second pasuk is 5 words. The last pasuk is 7 words. So 3, 5, and 7 is Keneged Birkat Kohanim. Bechad Oimar, and one says, you know what it's corresponding to? Shlosha Keneged Shomrei Hasa, correspond to the 3 gatekeepers of the temple. 5 of the king's ministers that saw his face regularly, and the other 7 ministers who saw the king's face. So we really have to understand here what this is talking about. What's the corresponding between the Kohanim 3, 5, and 7, corresponding to the ministers of the king? So here in the Metiftah Gemara, in the back, it brings down what it means we're comparing, adding a leap year to Birkat Kohanim. So he says over here as follows: that really HaKadosh Baruch Hu could bless the Jewish people in one bracha. Why did he give the Kohanim 3 brachot? Because of his love for them. Therefore, the Jews, when they're doing Hashem's will to add a month to the year, they start with 3, they go to 5, they go to 7, because they're learning from Hashem how to add on when you love something. So that's the Yad Ramah's opinion. Tosafot Yom Tov gives a different opinion. He says, in order to bring bracha to the new month, you're adding another month. One of the reasons why you add a new month is because it's not springtime. The fruits didn't grow, that didn't grow. So Tosafot Yom Tov says, if you're going to make a new month, you're going to connect it to the Birkat Kohanim, so you should bring the power of the bracha to that new month of Adar Bet. And Yaakov says, the Birkat Kohanim, what's Birkat Kohanim? The Kohanim are blessing the Jews, and Hashem says, I agree, I'm also going to bless them. The same thing when it comes to making a new month. We make the new month, and then Hashem says, I agree with them that today is going to be Adar Bet. That's the way the En Yaakov understands. So you have the Yad Ramah, Tosafot Yom Tov, and En Yaakov regarding to that. What about comparing it to the king's ministers? So Rashi on the page, the last Rashi over here says, Perish Lefi Sheibur Hashana Hi Mitchasisei Malchot Shemayim Hu Shemiyashvim Et Seder Hashanim Amuchonam. Adding a month to the year is a heavenly job. You know, the heavenly constellations, the moon, the sun, these are stuff that are done in Shemayim. So the kingship on earth, is compared to the kingship in Shemayim, right? The kingdom on earth is Hashem agreeing from Shemayim to earth. So we learn from the earthly kingdom how to do it in the heavenly kingdom. So since we're dealing with heavenly bodies, we're going to use royalty to do it. And to do that, you need 3, 5, and 7. The Aruch HaNer says, it's because month of the year has to do with kingship. Why? In Masechet Rosh Hashanah, we learned that there are 4 Rosh Hashanahs, and one of them is Rosh Hashanah Limalachim, a new year for the kings. The new year for the kings start on Nisan. So since the adding another bet will affect the count of a king's years, so therefore you got to do it with royalty. Just like a king had 3, 5, and 7 different guards, so therefore you also did it in that way with 3, 5, and 7. That's the Pshatim over here. There are more opinions, but we're going to leave it at that. We're on 10B-4 on the top. Tanya Rabbi Yosef. Three types of guards that they wore. So why did you never teach me this law? 3, 5, and 7 is because of these things. Why didn't you tell me until today this? Rabbi Yosef said to him, I didn't know that you wanted to know this. Did you ever ask me something that I didn't tell you? Meaning, I didn't know that you needed this. Now that you're telling me you wanted, here, now you get it. You need to tell me that you wanted to learn this part. Okay, now we're coming to the next Gemara. The Gemara starts off, this is a very interesting Gemara. we're going to be dealing with this Ziman, Nasi, Tzarich, Gedi, Siman. All have to do with Ibur Hashana, adding a month to the year. Let's start. Tanu Rabbanan. El Ma'abirin et Hashana. We don't add a month to the year. Ela b'mzumanin la. Only with judges who were invited by the Nasi to serve on the court of adding a month. The Nasi, the head of the Sanhedrin, had to invite them to come work. Now we're going to start with some stories. I know you guys wanted some stories, so we got them in here. Maseh Rabban Gamliel She'amar was a story that happened with Rabban Gamliel. He said, Hashkimuli Shiv'a la'aliyah. I need 7 judges up in the attic to work on adding a new month or not for this year. Hishkim umatzah shmona. He comes up to the attic, and now there are 8 judges there. Okay, so what happened here? There are different opinions. One opinion is Rabbi Gamliel told his gabbai, go get me 7 judges. What he meant was, go get me 6 judges, and I will be the 7th. The gabbai understood it as 7 judges, so he went and got 7 people. So all 7 people were invited by the gabbai, but Rabbi Gamliel really only wanted 6 more and himself. Now he comes and he finds an 8th one. So now it's a problem because you only can have 7 who were invited. 7 people working on it, not more. Others explain, no, the Rabbi Gamliel actually sent out the invitations, and someone showed up. Someone showed up extra. He wanted to see what was going on, and he came there. So now what does he say? So Amar, Rabbi Gamliel says, the person who came here without permission needs to leave. What happened? Amad Shmuel HaKatan ve'amar. Shmuel HaKatan got up and he said, Ani hu sha'aliti shelo b'reshut. I am the one who came here without permission. I didn't come here to work on it as a judge to add a month. Rather, I came to learn how it's done. I'm just an observer. Amar lo, he said to him, Shev beni, Shev, sit my son, sit. Really? All the years that we add on leap years should all be done through you. But the rabbi said, but the halacha is you only can be there if you were invited. You're not allowed to come if you weren't invited, even as a spectator. You could not come there. So now the Gemara says, the lo Shmuel HaKatan hava. And it wasn't Shmuel HaKatan. Shmuel HaKatan was really invited. Ela inash achina. Rather, there was another person that there that either came by mistake or wasn't, or came just to observe, but it wasn't of Shmuel HaKatan. But because he didn't want someone else to get embarrassed, Shmuel HaKatan said, it was me. He said, I'd rather get the embarrassment than embarrass somebody else. The Yerushalmi ends off the story that says that day they did not do the leap year because there were 8 people there. So they just talked about other halachot, so no one got embarrassed. And then the next day, the 7 correct people showed up and they worked on the leap year. Now, the Gemara is going to bring a similar story that happened. Rabbi Yehuda Hanasi was sitting and he was teaching Torah, right? And he smelled the smell of garlic. Somebody ate garlic and came to the shiur. He didn't just eat garlic on his pizza. Yeah, like garlic. It was a real garlic breath. Okay? And he was sitting there, and Amar, he said, Misha achal shum yetzeh. The person who ate garlic needs to leave right now. Yehuda Nasi was very sensitive to the garlic smell. And he said, if you ate garlic, you got to leave right now. So what happened? Amad Rabbi Hiya v'yatza. Rabbi Hiya got up and left. Amad kulan v'yatzeu. So now the whole shiur got up and left. So the Rabbi Yehuda Nasi was left with nobody in the class. The whole class left. Nobody's there. B'shachar matzor Rabbi Shimon Rabbi Hiya. Rabbi Shimon, the son of Rabbi, saw Rabbi Hiya the next morning. He said to Rabbi Chia, you caused my father pain. Whether he thought he had the garlic, that's one opinion, that you're the one with the garlic and you left. Or other opinion is that when you got up, everyone left. So my father was left with nobody to teach. Amar lo, Rav Chia said to him, Lo tieh kazut b'Yisrael. There should never be like this, something in the Jewish people where somebody gets embarrassed. In order not to embarrass somebody, I got up and I left. Yes, Mokin.
So it's okay to make up something to cover somebody else from embarrassment.
Yep, that's what we're seeing.
Even it's not true. The other person might get offended if it was
exactly.
Yeah?
Exactly. Sure. Let me tell you, and I just tell you aside, in a lot of times in my shiurim or stuff like that, people say things very, very wrong, and other people are hearing it. And I know if I'm going to explain to him and tell him he's 100% wrong, he's going to get very embarrassed. So a lot of times I make believe that I don't understand what he's saying, or I tell him, we'll talk about it later, it makes sense or something like that, in order not to embarrass somebody. You see things on the side, sometimes you're sitting at the table on Shabbat, or you see someone doing something, might get embarrassed. The other day I was walking with someone and he passed gas. So what am I going to do? Start saying, I'm embarrassed him? No. Kabuti, I didn't hear anything, didn't see anything, didn't smell anything. You got to go on with life. It's important not to embarrass people. You see, even Rabbi Yehuda Hanasi, even Rabbi Gamliel, without realizing, they almost came to embarrass people. So it happens that sometimes people embarrass you without even knowing it. But if you're there and you realize that you can stop it, very important to stop it. Rabbi Chia, where did he see that he can do this, embarrass himself to not embarrass somebody else? Rabbi Meir. He saw it from Rabbi Meir. Now listen to this. This is a very outlandish story. The Tanya was torn in Braita. It happened with one woman. She came to the Bet Midrash of Rabbi Meir. Amralo. She said to him, Rabbi, she said to Rabbi Meir, who is the head of the Bet Midrash, she said, one of your students came and married me through Bia. They did Kiddushin with Bia, which means with relations, which you're not supposed to do that. In fact, even though it's a biblical way of marrying a woman, if you do it with the intentions to marry her and you have relations with her, it is considered a valid Kiddushin. However, Chachamim said it's not the proper way to do it. In fact, already in the times of the Talmud, they would give people malkut if they were marrying someone with bia, with relations. So she said, one of your students was mekadosh me with bia. He had the witnesses to the Kiddushin, and the witnesses are not here anymore, and I need to either stay with him. He's supposed to be my husband, and he's not staying with me, or let me get a divorce. So now, if they would point out the student in the Beit Midrash, he would get very, very embarrassed because he did something that's asur. So what did Rabbi Meir do? So the Gemara continues. Amad Rabbi Meir. Rabbi Meir got up. Chatav la get kiritut. He wrote her a get. Kabuta, he was the one that married her with bia. V'natanla, he gave it to her. Amdu katvu kulam v'natnula. And then every student in the Beit Midrash got up and wrote her a get and gave it to her. So in order not to embarrass the student, the whole yeshiva gave her a get. So now her husband, who was in there somewhere, also gave her a get. And so she had a valid get. But this way, Rabbi Meir embarrassed himself as if it was him who gave a get. And then the whole yeshiva gave her a get. Very embarrassing situation. But in order to cover up someone's embarrassment, Rabbi Meir put himself in an embarrassing place. So that's the Rabbi Chia learned it. Rabbi Meir mehecha gamela. Now Rabbi Meir, where did he learn it? Mishmuel hakatan. He learned it from Shmuel hakatan. Shmuel hakatan mehecha gamela. And where did he see it from? Mishchania ben Yechiel. From a person called Shchania ben Yechiel. Who's Shchania ben Yechiel? It says, Vayan Shchania ben Yechiel b'nei Elam v'yom ha'ezrach. אנחנו מעל לנו ואלוהינו ונושב נשים נוחיות מעמי הארץ ועתה יש מקווה לישראל על זאת. When Ezra brought back people from Babel to Eretz Yisrael, a lot of the Jews were married to Gaisha women. A lot of the Jewish men were married to Gaisha women. So Ezra said you have to go away from them. Now this guy, Shechaniah ben Yechiel, he was not married to a Gaisha woman. But yet he stood up and said as if he was married and he's going to make teshuvah and send her away. And he was never married to a Goyish woman, and yet he embarrassed himself and saying that he was. So that's where Shmuel HaKatan saw that you're able to embarrass yourself in order to protect other people. Ushchanya ben Yechiel, where did he learn it from? He learned it from Yehoshua. He learned it from Yehoshua. Where you see by Yehoshua? It says by Yehoshua, Hashem said to Yehoshua, Kum lach, why are you laying down and being upset? Israel has sinned. Hashem said that Israel, the whole Jewish nation, sinned when it's not true. Only Achan, who took from the spoils of Jericho, which he was not allowed to, he took it. Amar Lefanav, Yeshua said to Hashem, Mi hata. Who was the person who took the spoils from Jericho without permission? Who was it? Amar Lo, Hashem said to him, Dilotar ani. Am I a snitch? Am I a tattletale? You see, Hashem said, I'm not a tattletale. I'm not a snitch. I'm not going to tell you who did it. Lech hatel goralot. Go cast lots, make gorals in order to figure out who it was, in order for him to make teshuvah. So you see, Hashem said the whole of Israel sinned, and really only Achan sinned, and Hashem never pointed out who it was. So you see, you should spare someone from embarrassment. If you want to say even better, you see it from Moshe. It says by Moshe, when Hashem was talking to Moshe, how upset he was that some people went to collect mun on Shabbat. It said, Ad anam antem. Until when shall you all refuse? When will all Klal Yisrael not listening to me? It was only Datan v'Aviram who went down on Shabbat to go get the mun when it was Asur. And yet Hashem says all. You see, Hashem avoided the embarrassment of Datan v'Aviram and said rather all of Israel without singling them out. So we see how important it is to try to spare someone's embarrassment. Now, question from this Gemara is, why does someone have to learn it from somebody else? I have a good idea. It's a very good idea. Don't embarrass somebody. Why do I have to say that he learned it from him, and he learned it from him, and he learned it from him, he learned from Meir learned from Shmuel HaKatan from Shchani ben Yechiel, and Ben Shchani ben Yechiel from Yehoshua or from Moshe? Why I need a whole chain of people to learn it from? So I saw brought down that even when a person has a good idea to do something, you have to have the shoresh, you have to have somewhere to see that this is actually a Jewish thing to do. You cannot just make up your own good things to do. You have to make sure that it fits with the Torah. And so they had to find a source for it. And why so many different sources? Because just because it fits one person's conduct, it doesn't mean it fits everybody's conduct. It has to be set for you. So your Rebbe knows what's good for you, so he'll tell you to do like this. So you learn from this Rebbe, that person learned from that Rebbe, that person learned from that Rebbe, and knows that it works for him. Because a person shouldn't just see something someone does and start to do it also. This is called monkey see, monkey do. We don't do monkey see, monkey do. What we do is what is proper to do. What can I learn that's proper for me to do from this person or from that person? That's why he had all these different teachings to learn it where they learned it from. Okay? Fine. Let's go a little further. A few more minutes. When the last few prophets passed away, who were the last three prophets? Chagai, Zechariah, Umalachi. Nistalka Ruach HaKodesh mi-Yisrael. Ruach HaKodesh, Nevuah, prophecy, went away from the Jewish people. V'af al pi ken hayu mishtamshim bivat kol. But even so, the prophecy was taken away. They still had the bat kol. The bat kol, according to some opinion, is a lower form of prophecy of Ruach HaKodesh. It is a much lower form. Others explain the bat kol is a voice that comes out for Shemayim to specific people, and it's a voice within a voice. It's an echo of a voice, a message from Shemayim. Pamachat, one time, hayu misubin ba'aliyat bet Guria bericho. The sages were reclining in the attic of Guria's house in Jericho. And a voice from Shemayim came down and said, Yesh kan echad there's here somebody who really deserves the Shekhinah to come to him, and he should be a Navi. He should be a prophet. But his generation does not merit this. I mean, it's not a generation of prophecy. And therefore, although he is ready to achieve prophecy, he can't because of the generation. All the sages turned to Hillel Hazaken. They said it was him. When he passed away, they say, "Hey Hasid, what a pious man. Hey Anav, what a humble man. Tamido Shel Ezra. He was a student of Ezra, just like Ezra left Babylon, and came to Israel to teach Torah. So did Hillel Hazaken leave Babel and come to Eretz Israel to teach Torah. Shuv, Hamahat. One time, they were sitting in the attic in Yavne, and a voice came down from Shemayim, Batkov. There is somebody among you who is deserving of Nevuah. But your generation is not deserving of this. Who was this? Shmuel HaKatan. They all looked at Shmuel HaKatan. That's why he was called Shmuel HaKatan. The Shmuel, the real Shmuel, is the Navi that we have in the Naviim. Shmuel HaKatan is just as great as Shmuel the Navi, but he's Katan because he didn't reach Nebu'ah because of his generation. And when he died, they said about him, "Hey Hasid, what a Hasid, hey Anav, what a humble person. Tamido Shel Hillel. He was a student of Hillel. But the truth is, Shmuel really did have prophecy at the end of his life, because he said, right, so as he was about to die, he said, Shimon v'Yishmael harba. Shimon v'Yishmael, they're going to be killed by the sword. They're going to become one of the 10 martyrs that the Romans killed. The Astara Harugei Malchut of the Romans. Shimon and Ishmael. And the other ones are going to be killed by other means. And the nation will become despoiled. And terrible things are coming to the world. And so we see Shmuel Katan on his deathbed had Nebu'ah. He was able to say all these things. All of them came true. And on Yehuda ben Bava, also Bikshu Lomar came. They wanted to say about him that he also was such a Hasid, such an Anab, Roy to Nebu'ah. But the opportunity was lost. Because he was killed by the government, we didn't want to say things about him. Because if you would say nice things about a person who the government killed, the government either won't let you bury that person, or he'll get the people who said nice things about him into trouble. So therefore, they would not say nice things about, make a hesped for Yehuda ben Bava, because he was killed by the government. But otherwise, he really deserved of these words and of Nevu'ah, but the generation wasn't right to that. Okay, Rabotai, this is where we're going to end for this week. As exactly 1:30, Baruch Hashem. Anyone have any questions?
Yeah. Is this the same person who set up the Amidah for us?
Shmuel HaKatan, he was the one who added in the bracha laminim b'lam shinim that we say. That was the 19th bracha that he put in. That's correct. The rest of the tefillah was arranged by the Anshe Knesset HaGodolah, the last of the 120 Nevi'im that we had, including Chagai, Zachariah, Malachi, Mordechai, and all of them who put the tefillah that we have it today. Is based from the Anshe Knesset HaGodolah. But the bracha laminim b'lam shinim is from Shmuel HaKatan. Yes. Very good. All right. I'll put it off.